Rodgers, we don't know what he could have been if Brett Favre did immediately retire after the 2004 season, and then we had to live, us Packer fans had to live with Aaron Rodgers. We don't know what could have happened at that point. And I think that obviously Aaron Rodgers will tell you, man, the biggest thing that helped him in his career, why he is the player he is today. A lot of times, Brett Favre, especially a lot since the Hall of Fame stuff, and people have kept kind of poking and prodding about what could he have done more, and really sometimes you don't have to sit down and you being the the old veteran, you don't have to sit down and be like a school teacher for this kid, but sometimes it's just watch what I do, watch what I do in practice. um, Maybe even just try to compete with me. Try to do things better than I can. If Rodgers can't figure out a certain drill, maybe Favre said, I'm sure a lot of guys would be. If I ask you, hey, what are you doing that you can do this role better than I can do, and he'll tell you. And he said a lot of it. Rodgers said he watched Favre's footwork. And sometimes I always joked where it looks like sometimes he learned from Favre's good throws, okay, to do that, and maybe what not to do. Don't throw it in triple coverage. Don't make these sometimes good throws he makes, and sometimes that's almost Aaron Rodgers' fault to the other side of that. Again, another topic we talk about a lot here on Sports Talk 920. But I think so much can go from not just Romo going, okay, well, in a live game scenario, he's not going to go to Dak Prescott going, okay, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do a 3-step drop, and when I hit that third drop, you don't have to break it down to them. But if they, they're in practice every day, they're going through these QB meetings too. They're getting coached by the coaches as well. But if you can watch and kind of learn what these veteran quarterbacks are doing, I think that gives them the best development. And if they really want to learn, put them behind a clipboard, learn an offense, because sometimes you have to, as a team, especially the Dallas Cowboys, where we see them go from 2014 being one of the highest powered offenses, and then you're being thrust and thrown these young QBs like Kellen Moore, well, Matt Castle, I guess not young, Brandon Weeden, not young, but guys that haven't been around that team that much and just really couldn't get anything going. Where, give them you don't want to dummy down the offense, and I think RG3 was a prime example of that too when he first went to Washington. He kind of had to dummy down the offense a little bit because they didn't learn it in time. They didn't have enough time to learn it. Where even and you have to be again, it has to be in the right scenario too, where sometimes these guys get drafted, and maybe even like a Jared Goff in a Los Angeles situation where his job may be on the line if they don't turn it around or show sign of improvement at least, or I don't know what keeps Jeff Fisher employed nowadays. It's sometimes beyond me, but something like that where you have to win right away and you just thrust that rookie in there and just hoping he can work his magic that he did in college. And it puts a Russian strain on you. You kind of wonder what, like Josh McDaniels, what were his plans with Tim Tebow that he never really got to do because he was fired from the team before anything really, I guess, fermented from that. And that's where Aaron Rodgers again ended up going into a perfect situation where he wasn't like Alex Smith, who I think another reason why he hurt too was 5 different coaching staffs or 5 different offensive coordinators in his first 5 years. I think that really stunts your development. Where Rodgers got to sit behind, Favre for those 3 years. He's been with Mike McCarthy his entire career. I think he is now a quarterback that could go to any other team and succeed, but during those development years when he was a backup, he's with the same coach, running the same system. He got to learn it, and sometimes that helps you. If Rodgers had to leave and learn a new system, he might not put up the same exact numbers he puts up in Green Bay, but he'd maybe know what to look for now, being a 10-year vet, obviously. But it's a whole nother beast. College is not exactly like the pros. There's a lot of times there's more complex offenses. It's a faster speed. So for a guy like Dak Prescott, I think the future is bright for Dallas Cowboy fans, because I don't think you have to to worry, being like, I think after 2015, you're probably, man, Cowboys should have something in the back pocket for, we have a 36-year-old quarterback that's been pretty kind of injury prone over the past few years. Even besides those injuries, he might be out the door soon. I mean, maybe at best he plays another 2-3 years. I mean, it's not like I would, Tom Brady. He can be playing until he's 45. I mean, he's just that good if he really chooses to do so. Where Tony Romo, I mean, you could say his performance being in that B list, where even the Cowboys got to think, well, we might have to give up on him at some point. I mean, do you think the Packers wanted to give up on, arguably one of the top 5 greatest quarterbacks of all time, Brett Favre, to go to Aaron Rodgers at the age of, I believe it was 38? So, you got your quarterback of the future. He's doing great in the preseason, but sometimes, once you're starting to play, the starting defenses, and once that film's on you, once that target's on your back, it's a totally different game. And even if Dak Prescott, I think he'll be a decent starter. Could be great. I don't know. I'm just gonna go off, I guess, on a prediction line and say he'll be pretty good. But it's a whole different ball game once they got tape on you. I mean, that's always the old saying there. But it's still kind of a neat story that you kind of wonder, they went to the 4th round to draft a quarterback. Finally got someone in there. But it's also, I think, especially the way I think a lot of Cowboys fans are, and maybe not saying they're rational, but maybe I am. They probably would have wanted to see Dak Prescott in the starting role a lot sooner than later. So, if they would have spent it maybe a 3rd round up, or in the 1st or 2nd round, or whatever. So there's that. But yeah, again, a lot of good battles too, and we're gonna see some roster cuts coming up here. I believe it's week. I believe it will be on Tuesday. So watch out for that. And maybe some teams will be on moves. I think for some reason we're spending a lot of time talking about the Dallas Cowboys this week, but the defensive line being as maybe weak as they are. Maybe we'll find maybe a veteran that gets cut, maybe not this week, but next week when they make the final roster cuts, and for teams to save on salary cap space, or we find some guy that was playing pretty good, but just not good enough to make a good defensive team that was more serviceable than the current defensive line that the Cowboys have now. And of course, you have guys under suspension, so there is that as well. But the Cowboys, I think they'll be fine if Tony Romo stays healthy. I think you need Tony Romo to stay healthy the whole year. If Tony Romo did get hurt, I think what was their record last year? I can't remember, but it was horseshit, to be honest with you. And they might not be as bad. Maybe they'll be 7-9. I think they could be, right around a 10-6 ball club if Tony Romo doesn't remain healthy. They're 9-7. I can't remember where I predicted them at, but the factor will be if Tony Romo's healthy. But with that being said, here too, I'm gonna make this quick. Again, it's getting close to 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll be going to Michigan here, basically in a few hours. So, yeah, I'm kind of trying to limit the limit here as much as I can. But anyway, speaking of NASCAR, again, if you haven't heard by now, Dale Jr. is going to be sitting out 2 more races. He's going to miss 2 special paint schemes for him. He had the Michigan Exalta car here, which for me, as a Dale Jr. fan, no big deal. It's just a Michigan car, the Michigan University. Still kind of a cool looking car, I guess, but missing that one. Alex Bauman is going to be driving that car this weekend, as Jeff Gordon did have previous commitments. So who knows what they are? Maybe banging his wife. Who cares? But he'll be running the Gray Ghost scheme. That was kind of one of Dale Jr.'s favorite schemes. Gordon will be running that at Darlington, as he'll be at least missing these next 2 races. And part of me, I don't know. Part of me feels like this could be these last 2 races are going to be the last 2 Junior misses, because Junior is kind of making himself out more in public now. If you follow him on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, Facebook, he's I believe he was at a signing in a mall in Concord, North Carolina. So he's making himself a little bit more available to the public, which I think is promising. And he's saying he was doing things like going to the grocery store and stuff like that to get him in these situations that were previously kind of making his symptoms active. So I guess that's promising too. But then when something like this happens, it almost kind of reminds me of in the NFL, Javid Best, where he had some concussions and he had a lot of repetitive concussions and basically kept getting passed over, kept getting not cleared until basically I think the point where almost 2 years ago he still wanted to come back and it was borderline hell, it's too late for you to come back. Basically just letting was it Chinese inspection, as they said in Days of Thunder, where they just kind of set you to the side until by the time maybe they get around to looking at you, you're all done rotten. That's what they're saying. But Junior, being as old as he is, if he has to sit out, say throw it out there 2 years, I mean, is at that point do you even want to come back? But if it's something, if it is just the rest of the season, there's I think the only reason you come back now, obviously, is for your love of the sport. He does love racing, and it's something that he still wants to do. If that is something he wants to do, and maybe there is, I shouldn't say that. That's all speculation. I'm saying if he still does want to race after these concussions, I think also probably does want back in the race car too. Maybe even just to prove that he can do it. Maybe just come back for a 5 year, kind of like a Tony Stewart kind of a deal. Or maybe if he comes back and starts like in 2016, he'll go back to 2017, similar to what he did. But coming back, if you just sit out this year, maybe even start out, and again, I'm not a doctor, and again, this is all speculation too, but maybe it would be better for him to run maybe just the Xfinity Series or the Truck Series or something, where you're running maybe the Truck Series where you're not going to be running every week here until November, and these races will be a lot shorter for him, where he's always wanted to run the Truck Series, so it'd be a good excuse to get that knock one off the bucket list, maybe get a win, and he'll win in all top 3 series and put himself on that kind of prestigious list, NASCAR. But it kind of gets you working fresh. His reflexes will be somewhat fresh once they go to February in Daytona. But come back to the Sprint Cup side of it. And for one, probably Gordon doesn't want to be in that car the whole year long, and I'm sure there's a lot of sponsorship stuff that needs to be cleared up as well. But we've seen this before. Ernie Irvan, I'm just thinking of this. Ernie Irvan back in 1995, coming back from his serious head injury, ran a truck race in, I believe, one of his only truck races he ran at North Wilkesboro back, and he didn't make the Cup race that same week. But maybe just try giving it a test run. Maybe something at, I don't know when their next truck race is, that kind of sisters with the Cup series. Maybe Chicagoland, the first race in the Chase. Maybe that's a weekend he can run that race in the Truck Series, and you're running, 400 miles. He's only running like 250 or 200, maybe 300 miles. A lot shorter scale, and there's a lot more cautions. Or maybe he has to get out of the car. He can put someone else in there for him if things aren't working out for him, even after he's cleared. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out. But I think we're kind of on the tail end of the real tail end of Junior out, and I think he probably will come back before Richmond, but I never know. At this point, when he set out after the Kentucky race, I never would have guessed it would have been this long. Never really would have even thought that they would have needed Jeff Gordon to film for him at Indianapolis. Basically a month ago. So it's been kind of a crazy road. But anyway, we had the race at Bristol last week, and man, I want to tell you what I think they did for Bristol. I think we've seen some of those tempers flaring, but I think you get back and kind of getting that kind of the close racing action where stuff happened. We talked about the Xfinity Series race 2. I think in last week's show, because that was last Friday night, with Kyle Busch calling Brad Keselowski a dirty racer and whatnot. But also, I think you do see that better racing, because if you have a fast car that hooks up on the bottom, although I don't think it was quite as good as what what they hoped it would be on the bottom, but I think it still gave you an option to run that bottom line. It was almost kind of like a dirt track. I kind of remember going to Eldora